is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Get in on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business.
Thank you for staying with us, everyone. Quite frankly, we all know that the turn of the 21st century has brought with it a lot of blessings, particularly as has to do with how technology has helped to bring so much of radical evolution to how businesses are conducted across the world. I remember sometime in 2006, an engineer had come to work in an organization on Go Talking. That was 18 years ago or something. In the city where I was at the time, there was probably no ATM terminal, and he just joked about how that if it were in Lagos, he would find an ATM terminal, maybe pull or two away and things like that, and we laughed about it. But that was in 2006. Now, 18 years down the line, you find ATM terminal virtually at every turn. Sometimes the hospitals, established hospitals, healthcare facilities, stores, quick service restaurants, fast food restaurants, where else? Hotels, and all of that. So it just shows how far we've come with regards to deploying technology to create ease of access in terms of financial transactions. How about other, electronic channels, whether it's POS, app on your phone, USSD, and what have you? Several options you can use. Of course, there's internet banking where you can go to the web, log into your account, do transactions, whether domestic or foreign, and things like that. But this evolution, or if you like, this innovation has also brought with it headwinds, several challenges that people who use them will have to deal with every now and then. And in Nigeria, that issue has further been complicated because of the peculiar nature of ecosystem, the business ecosystem here, the level of technological advancement we've been able to achieve as a country, as a government, and as a people back here. In recent times, we also see how that there has been issues around, power problems, disruptions in power supply, companies and banks in particular, running helter-skelter, right, making all efforts to ensure that they are able to adopt energy mix of some kind, which in itself is not very pocket-friendly, all right? But adds to that challenge the fact that we're also seeing a migration, if you like, of some of these experts in the IT space. Of course, you can't divorce banking from technology in the last, the current century that we're living, right? The new millennium, as we call it, right? So we've seen people who are thought leaders, people who are experts in the field of tech, especially as it has to do with banking, leave this country in search of the so-called greener pastures. That again has created further dip, all right, in what is supposed to be a robust sector. So a lot of banks have had to, in the last 3 to 5 years in particular, find a way to desperately fill the gaps left by these expats who have left the country. While we're struggling with that, what are some of the consequences? Disruption of service, one time and again. I mean, it just becomes some of those instances that Nigerians are so familiar with. Whether you're going to be on the floor of the bank to do transactions in person, or you're going to be in the comfort of your home, or somewhere in between work to pull off a transaction of any kind, is a challenge. But the one that happened this last week has become one technical disruption in service too many. I mean, this is supposed to be a 21st century bank. Some people say, well, a new generation bank. One that is very established. How did it happen that such a bank, as has been the case severally in recent times, caused that much of inconvenience for customers across this country? I mean, the feedback, the assessments, and what have you online doesn't look good. Not just for the brand itself, but again for the industry and for customers. All right, to the point that some people who work in these banks are even not proud, just to put it mildly, to talk about some of these issues because of the ramifications that they have, all right, for people who use the services of these banks in particular. I mean, I know of friends, some family members, and of course colleagues who have had to just suffer unnecessarily or avoidably because the bank won't allow them access to their own money. And it can be very painful. I mean, it's supposed to be your money, but you don't have access to it. Well, somebody once said some years ago that in core finance, if you can't have access to your money, it's not your money, because it's the money you can have access to that's yours, because you can't spend what you don't have access to, even though it is legitimately and legally your money. But away from that, it just shows that there's a whole lot of work to be done, and the banks had required to be very sincere about these issues. Just while we're dealing with the new generation bank, an old generation bank also had its own problem. What we normally find is these banks will send a message either through text or email, sometimes even on the app, right, to say we're carrying out an upgrade on our IT infrastructure. What else? We're doing IT maintenance. Most banks will give you an idea as to how long it will take. Some of them will tell you the whole of Saturday. Some will say, well, 6 p.m. to midnight or such and such day or such and such days, just so you know when to, I mean, you build your schedule around that maintenance, all right, period and all of that. But we have also seen instances where those schedules, they actually work. I mean, the banks don't stick with those schedules. So what does that say? Two things have to be looked at here. First is the consequence, the repercussions that people have to suffer on account of what these banks do. Some persons have even had to speculate that there are banks that deliberately turn off service from their head offices in Lagos for reasons we do not know. So how do you deal with that, right? The second, which is more important, is how do we address this issue once and for all? It means that while the banks, we understand, have been investing very humongously in upscaling their IT infrastructure, I mean across banks, we must also find a way to learn from these, payment service banks. We must find a way to learn from microfinance banks that are doing brilliant things with technology as well, all right? I think, this is my opinion, not that of Global Television, that the commercial banks, those that have become really established, those that are supposed to be the leading lights, as it were, must find the corporate humility to learn from these microfinance banks, from these payment service banks, these e-banks as we call them, colloquially, that are doing amazing things with app. I mean, I think it's not, it's more or less a shame for a cabman to tell you, I trust this particular e-service bank, this particular microfinance bank, than all the commercial banks, all the conventional banks in this country. We must find a way to learn from that. We must also learn from countries, even within Africa, who are doing better in terms of downtime. There's nowhere in the world where you don't have downtime. I mean, the 10 biggest banks in the world, most of which are domiciled in Manhattan, New York, the financial capital of the world, all right, still have downtimes. But the challenge is, what's the sincerity that the executives, that the leaderships of these banks bring to bear under these circumstances when you have a downtime, and how long do these downtimes last for? It's very important. You can't tell a customer a downtime will last for 6 hours, and then 3 days and 4 days down the line, they can't even access their app. I mean, I've had that same experience this week. There was, for example, for 4 days straight, I couldn't open the app that the bank gave to me. It's not my app. You gave me the app. I couldn't use it. So that gives you at least an insight into how much the every Nigerian must have suffered this last week in particular just to access their own money. Our banks certainly can do better, and regulators must also hold the executives and the leaderships of banks accountable in this regard. It doesn't have to be a fight between the end users, the customers, Nigerians, and the banks. The regulators must step up beyond just asking how much of Forex banks sold during the week, how much they remit in terms of maybe the obligation to the Central Bank of Nigeria or to the NDIC or to the Securities and Exchange Commission. We must find out exactly how are they doing with customer service. It's very important, that customer service element. The CBN must do more. I don't know if there's a department for that. The department has to be more effective. All right? If there isn't a department in particular, then there has to be one that focuses on how customers are served. How does the CBN, for example, measure customer perception of banks' services? It's important. If countries can have corruption perception index that ranks how countries are perceived in terms of their level of corruption, it means we can also have customer service perception index for banks, and the CBN must lead in this regard, right? All right, enough of banks and the wahala they have cost Nigerians in recent times. Let's turn to the newspapers for you after this break. All right, let's turn to the papers. We have quite a number of them here, but we're starting with the Sunday Independent, and of course the headlines just above the nameplates first. Says hardship, we are deprived of palliatives from pensioners. Okay, from FG pensioners lament. All right, the Sunday Independent, hardship, we are deprived of palliatives from FG pensioners lament. What more do we have? PDP crisis, we are prepared to deal with all complaints firmly. Disciplinary committee. Okay, what's more? Top right corner. Flood wreaks havoc in Ondo. You find those details on page 4 of the Sunday Independent. And then on the right end of the front page, experts divided over tax incentives for oil and gas sector. Nigeria trapped in policy crisis. Akinyemi. Rivers LG poll. Fubara triumphs as 22 APP candidates emerge winners. 2 riders with the headline. Explosions rock March anticipated election. Jonathan raises the alarm over potential crisis. You find those details on page 2 of today's this edition. That's the Sunday Independent. All right. Activists lampoon Tinubu over planned youth confab on page 2 as well. It's laughable waste of resources. That's the right there. CSOs unite against detention of 2,412 peaceful protesters. with two riders accompanying that headline, say Tinubu's government allergic to criticisms, insists protest is fundamental human right. Read up details on page 3 of the Sunday Independent. And then on the foot of the paper, I'm not thinking of 2027 election, but next generation. President Tinubu is there speaking on page 4 of the Sunday Independent today. That sounds great to say. All right, but then we have more papers for you. This time the Leadership newspaper is our next point of call. That will be the Leadership Sunday for you. All right, top right corner of the Sunday, the Leadership Sunday here. Let's see what it says. Okay, let's just start with the ones immediately below the nameplate of the Leadership Sunday. I'm after next generation of Nigerians, not 2027 election. Again, that's President Bola Tinubu speaking. I will refer to all new Asaba assures subjects as His Royal Majesty the Asaba of Asaba, Professor Epiphany Azinge. They're talking. His coronation was yesterday. It was a beehive of activity in Delta State. All right, but then we have the big story right now. What does it say? Despite renewed military offensive, bandits still control communities in 24 Katsina Zamfara LGs. Let's see what the writers say to us. We are making progress, say state governments, police. I'm not authorized to speak on development. Army spokesperson is the one to whom that is credited. And then here it says criticisms trail Tinubu's 14 foreign trips in 9 months. Of course, the president is midway into his 2-week vacation in the United Kingdom. This is not a working visit, he's there for vacation, and that much information was given to the public just as the president jetted out of Abuja for London. But then we're hearing now that he has done 14 foreign trips in 9 months. Is that too much? But I think the concern should be, what did he travel for? How much did that help the country? All right, I think those are the issues we should be interrogating. Absence of ambassadors, Nigeria losing voice in global diplomacy, former voice. LG polls, Rivers APP wins, Akwa Ibom, Benue, Jigawa collates results. We're still waiting for those results. Global TV has a news crew on the ground in Benue State, by the way, right? We will bring you all of those details in the course of our broadcast here. In the meantime, just to let you know that this weekend, just this Saturday, 4 local government elections were conducted. We have Akwa Ibom, Benue, Jigawa, and Rivers. Results are basically in for Rivers, all right? We understand the APP won 22 of the 23 local governments in the state. Recall that the APP had also been a very important strand in the political narrative and development in the state, because we had been told that the loyalist of Governor Simeon Laye Fubara of River State had moved from PDP to the APP, which we are now told has won 22 of the 23 local government elections, local governments in that state. Then we will await the results from Akwa Ibom, Jigawa, and what else? Of course, Benue as well. I will let you in on all of those, also have those details. So in the meantime, we understand that 3 states are now collecting results: Akwa Ibom, Benue, and Jigawa states. All right. Okay, let's move to our next paper, everyone, and that will be the Nation newspaper this morning for you. All right, so as we take a look at the Nation newspaper, first story above the main page has a picture of the Minister of Finance, who doubles as coordinating Minister of the Economy. LG begins sale of crude, refined petroleum products in Naira. What else does it say here? Just a rider for you. That's what the writer says. It says, okay, initiative, a step towards economic sustainability, currency stability. That's Edwin, what Edwin there talking. And then the star story On the Nation Sunday, Development Commission Southwest leaders chart way forward. 12 times over sold, says Tinubu, that's a rider. And the second rider says APC begins mobilization for future polls. And the third one, Akonde Olushi, public office holders detached from party. That's on page 5 of the Nation Sunday. Explosions, protests, boycotts, mar Rivers local government election with 3 riders for you. All right, says Jonathan, crisis is threat to democracy, peace in Niger Delta. Of course, that goes without saying. APP wins 22 out of 23 chairmanship seats. PDP, APC stay away. Thugs raise AXIEC office as Akwa Ibom holds local government election. All of those details on page 4 of the Nation Sunday for you. AXIEC, that's the Akwa Ibom State Independent Electoral Commission. We understand that it was raised by fire yesterday. And then as well with a picture of Pastor Enoch Adeboye of the Redeemed Christian Church of God here. It reads, I didn't ask Christians to stop tithing. That's Adeboye. Although orders evacuation as flood wreaks havoc. Just when you think flooding is, well, not over, really, at least something has been tamed to a very large extent. You just quickly find out that soon enough, it's happening somewhere else. This time it's Ondo, and the other time was Maiduguri and a few other states across the northern part of the country, including Jigawa, for example. But today is the southwest of the country, Ondo in particular. But you do want to pick up this paper and read up for yourself. Moving away now from the Nation newspaper, let's see what the Punch has got for us this morning. With the Punch, we'll begin with the headlines about the nameplates. Top right to start with has a picture of President Bola Tinubu on the Sunday Punch. It says youth groups divided on Tinubu's proposed confab. It has become a matter of should it hold or should it not hold. All right, let's see. Israel-Hezbollah war. Nigerians trapped in Lebanon crowds for help. All right, no version of that at the top of the program this morning. We are scared for our lives. Nigerian community president there. I go with police, government officials to negotiate with bandits. Sheikh Gumi talking on page 25 of the Sunday Punch newspaper. Marketers, refiners demands details as Naira for crude deal begins. Husband kills pregnant wife over suspected affair with brother. I was sharing this story just this morning before I got to the office of this very ugly, nasty, and disturbing incident. All right, the story is a bit bizarre because the young man who we are told is 30 and his deceased wife 25, all right, just got married about 3 months ago, but the man was already 6 months heavy by the time this incident took place just on Friday, all right, that they have always had their own fights, bickering, and what have you. So the lady's mom, of course, the man's mother-in-law, had come to the house to take him to a church for deliverance, believing that he needed to be delivered from some maybe spiritual forces or something. And then they had finished with that in the course of the day, got back home, and then his mother-in-law had left. He was alone with his wife. Again, they had a fight, and the next thing you know is, for police reports, I mean, this was Benjamin Deng, the spokesperson for the police command in Lagos, saying that he stabbed his wife just around the abdomen. The woman dies, he sets her ablaze, and then he inflicts injuries on himself. And one thing leads to another. He gets rescued. His late wife's corpse is taken to the morgue for autopsy, and then he's taken to the hospital. He gets treated and is discharged, and then police take him into custody. Now, what's the issue that led to this growing up as children? We used to call it last fight in movies, right? Was that he had suspected and alleged that the pregnancy was not for him. As a matter of fact, it was his younger brother who had impregnated his wife. So that was the basis for the grouse. that have led to the untimely death of this otherwise promising expectant mother, right? So it's complicated. It just freezes your brain for a second, messes up your thinking and your thought process altogether. But we hope the police get to the root of this and that justice will take its course. More importantly, that the family of this lady who had just been killed at 25 and anyone else who cares about her would find solace somehow. All right, so let's take a look at other headlines for you from the Sunday Punch this morning. Big story here says explosions, gunshots, mar Rivers poll. APP clears 22 cancels. And then two riders with that headline. Election free, transparent, says Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission Chairman. A government attack word as weakens loyalist protests. And then at the bottom, I considered suicide after being impregnated by rapists, physically challenged hairstylist. And her picture is right there. Fake sponsorships. Fraudulent care homes exploit UK crisis to defraud desperate Nigerians. And then at the very foot of the paper, overseas Nigerian sportsmen entertainers to pay 15% tax on earnings. All right, so that seems like a new era. Okay, but let's move on, everyone. Let's turn it out to the Sunday Telegraph for you quickly this morning on the paper. The star story first on the Sunday Telegraph says, cabinets, lobbyists besiege Tinubu, delay reshuffle. That's according to sources. That's the Sunday Telegraph's sources. But this story has its own headlines as well. We need to look at those headlines for you quickly. I mean, its own riders. It says religious, traditional political leaders seek appointments for sales cronies. First Lady children, COS Wiki under pressure to help. 2027, not my focus, but for welfare of Nigerians. That's President Tinubu again talking. All right, above the name masts, Zainab Adebayo, I'm challenged by my dual royalty, dual culture. All right. That story is replicated across a couple of papers today. By the way, Professor Azenge crowned Asaba of Asaba. He will lead his people to greatness, says Obi. That's the writer to that story. All right. What's more? Just to add that Professor Epiphany Azenge is a former Director General of the Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, and now the Asaba of Asaba in Delta State. Like I mentioned, it was a big half of activity yesterday, by the way. But let's take it a bit further down now. Rivers Fubara takes charge as APP coasts to victory. Two riders with the story as well. Civil defense, vigilance groups provide security. Jonathan, crisis capable of ending Nigeria's democracy. That story has a picture of the governor of River State, Siminalayi Fubara. Middle East crisis, FG puts intelligence security agencies on alert. Nigeria demands ends to protracted conflicts as FG plans return of Nigerians in Lebanon. And then at the foot of the paper, just before we take a break now, we have two more headlines. Finance Minister confirms sale of crude in Naira. Anti-party, we are ready for petitions, complaints, a Kimis committee. All right, we'll take a break at this point, everyone. When we return, we'll look at a few more papers for you in the course of the show this morning. Do stay with us. Right, everyone, let's continue with our papers quickly. This time, the Sunday Times is our next port of call. Here, just above, a little beneath the nameplate, says 2024 WTD, that's World Teachers Day. Plight of Nigerian teachers highlighted as stakeholders profile solutions. Tension at Alex Ekwueme University Teaching Hospital as money for residency training vanishes. Professor Azingi ascends throne as 14th Asaba of Asaba. What else do we have here? Nigerian pensioners decry neglect over FG's palliatives distribution. Furor over Adeboye's comments on paying tithe in churches. Northern leaders trade blames over sponsorship of banditry in region. Rivers LG poll holds despite twin explosions. APP wins in 22 of 23 councils. Ex-President Jonathan petitions NJC over conflicting judgments. That's again a very big issue for the Nigerian judiciary and indeed for Nigeria as a sovereign state. But shouldn't stop us from going to our next paper this morning, which is the Sunday Tribune. All right, let's take a look at the Sunday Tribune. Above the nameplate, we have a story that's got a picture of the governor of River State, Siminalayi Fubara. It says LG election, Fubara regains control of Rivers as APP sweeps 22 of 23 LGs with 3 riders accompanying. That's there. Quite an interesting read, especially given the crisis that has rocked Rivers politically. Says APC members protest, traders open for business. Delay March Benue LG poll. Yes, we understand right from yesterday that there had been some sort of logistics related issues with the local government election in Benue State, and that also had its own adverse impact. All right, what's more, Northern elders drum up support for constitution review. The writer says, urge Nigerians to voice areas they want amended in constitution. Of course, that issue has long been overdue because exactly a decade ago, in 2014, we had the national confab in this country, and the issues raised essentially during that confab that lasted for 4 months. All right, from the crux of what Nigerians want to see, because it was a representation of the entire country at that confab. All right, 4 months is a long time. So if we can't see those issues as important enough, all right, to be integrated, so to speak, into the constitution, and then it means we're probably just grandstanding now or trying to play to the gallery for saying Nigeria should voice. What more should they voice? I mean, we know the issues, all right? So it's for us all to be sincere about the kind of Nigeria we want to see and then match words with action. End the story. All right, let's see the story for you on the front page of the Sunday Tribune this morning. It says, I'm not thinking of 2027 polls now. Tinubu tells Southwest IPC leaders, says posterity of next generation on his mind. All right, then of course there's a special report here, cases of depression growing among Nigerians. That's medical experts there talking. 2 riders, one says cites economic recession as part of reasons, claim most people going to prayer mountains suffering from depression. LG announces commencement of crude oil sale in Naira to Dangote. World Teachers Day, NUT demands new salary scale. Tinubu assures of improved workers' conditions. Ekiti teachers endorse Oyebanji for 2nd term. Well, that's, for politicians, it's never too early. Makinde agrees to pay 70,000 Naira minimum wage. That's on page 5. All right, then left end corner of the Nigerian Tribune today, which is the Sunday Tribune, as the bottom left end. A woman who delivers quadruplets in Delta appeals for help over mounting hospital bills. Right? Incidentally, this is such life, and this is supposed to be a blessing, which I believe it is, but there's also an opposing challenge because their mother and indeed the family will have to settle certain bills before they're allowed to be released from the hospital. And that's phase one. The new phase, which is more of a longer term, is that they'll have to find a way to sustain those children, feeding, shelter, clothing, and of course health. All right. But let's take a look at our last paper for today for you, everyone, and that happens to be the Vanguard, the Sunday Vanguard. That is above the nameplate first of the Sunday Vanguard. It says, Tinubu, my plan ahead of 2027. In other words, the president is saying, look, 2027 is very important, no doubt about that, because leadership is a continuum. Nigeria must continue to be led. However, my topmost priority is not 2027. It is the next generation, it is posterity, and indeed that plan is ahead or beyond 2027. All right. And then we have one with a picture of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar here. It says Atiku raises dust with single-term rotational presidency. Tithe, Catholics others seize on Pastor Adeboye's apology. He has found light and truth. All right. Governor Enos' daughter succeeds deceased mom as Akwa Ibom First Lady. Now, this particular story has generated controversy. Somebody had even insinuated that the governor of Akwa Ibom, Governor Enos, wants to remarry. Others are saying, why would you make your daughter First Lady of the state, even though we know you're supposed to have one, but your wife has just been deceased? Is it not too early? Is it appropriate for her to be the First Lady, whether in acting capacity or whether she is the substantive First Lady? But all of this again will pass. I mean, we once saw in this same country where there was a commissioner for happiness, and people had a problem with it. They said, why would there be a commissioner for happiness? And others said, why would the governor, now former governor, make a relative or someone from his family commissioner in any case? And then they had a problem with the fact that there was a ministry for happiness. But again, that is behind us. Nigerians quickly move, right? We're not like the internet that doesn't forget. Okay, let's take a look at the big story for you from the Sunday Vanguard. Rivers violent LG polls. That's how the Sunday Vanguard pulls the kicker. All right, gunshots, bombings, protesters, weaken Fubara. Power struggle escalates. Three riders with that headline. APC Secretariat attacked, governors, candidates sweep elections. Yes, we understand 22 of the 23 local governments were won by the APP. Electoral Commission's office burnt in Akwa Ibom. So it's different strokes for different folks. In River State, it was twin bombing, it was absence of police protection, it was Fubara's boys, as it were, winning 22 of the 23 local governments election. Local governments, all right? 22 out of 23, that's almost 100 over 100. And then in Akwa Ibom, it was the burning down of the office of Akwa Ibom State's Independent Electoral Commission, ACSEC, all right? In Benue, it was delay of materials, logistics, specific issues. We just wanted to hear what the specifics and, of course, the peculiarities around Jigawa local government elections will be. Global Television will keep tabs on those issues for you, all right? What more do we have from the Sunday Vanguard? It says, Enugu demolishes mansion linked to kidnappers. There are states like that in this country, and River State is one of them, where the law says if a house is confirmed to be used for kidnapping, whether the landlord was involved or not, such a house will be demolished, and it's a law in those states. So we see what has happened now in Enugu State, southeast Nigeria. All right, so Doyinsola showcases maturity. You will find those details on page 18 of the Sunday Tribune. What's more, pray you don't fall ill as costs of drugs healthcare surge. That will make a very vital read on page 7 of the Sunday Vanguard newspaper. All right, let's see one more here, maybe two. Says a 4-year student's death at UniMeth. Ayudati was aid meets bereaved parents, and the writer says NNA says probe reports ready. Hidden scars of Colonel Maje Kudumi. Hidden scars of Colonel Maje Kudumi. The writer says, I was betrayed, jailed, dismissed from the army because I indicated interest in Milad. Milad, of course, that's short for military administration. That was back in the days, 80s and 90s, particularly in the 90s in particular. Of course, as is always the case, the Sunday Vanguard has a couple of articles, opinions that you can read up. Shobo Wale, Media, and Buni as well. You can find all of those and read them up for yourself this morning. So that's where we leave it with the papers today. Let's just take a quick break. When we return, it will be time to do our bye-byes. Do stay with us.
Is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
The Global Morning Team.
All right, let's begin to wind down, everyone. The last few months have seen a number of local government elections being conducted in Nigeria. Maybe we want to start with Edo State, where, of course, as is always the case, it was the ruling party, the PDP, that swept all 18 local governments. We've seen several more elections from that time to this point. We've seen Anambra, for example. We've seen Enugu. We've seen Abia. We've seen quite a number of states. Of course, we've also seen Imo. All right, we've seen just this weekend 4. Bonded into one Saturday. Ogo has its own upper head. Several other states. Of course, all of these would mean that we are now showing some signs that are indicative of the fact that we're ready, perhaps, to lead from the bottom up. In other words, provide leadership and governance at the grassroots level. However, that doesn't start and end with the conduct of elections. So there are concerns in this regard. First of all, will be how transparent, free, fair, and credible are these elections. Of course, we've seen arguments back and forth as to whether states should be allowed to conduct local government elections, in which case, as it stands today, we do understand, without having to pretend, that the governors are in charge. If you don't get it, River State is a case in point. However, in the end, when all of these fighting ends, who suffers? Who benefits? What does this mean? It simply means that Politicians and indeed the political class must do better, must ensure that leadership at the grassroots level is such that the public, citizens, can repose confidence in the process that produces chairmen and councillors. Is very important, because if we miss it at that level, it means the other tiers, states and federal, will basically be faulty, because most times, as we have come to find, particularly in a state like Nigeria, yes, Nigeria is a state, right, is such that those who have started leading from the grassroots eventually raise their game one way or another, and they find themselves at national leadership level. Therefore, we must ensure that we get it right from the base so we can shine at the stage level. Is very important, because as it stands today, it is sickening that you can sit in the comfort of your living room and predict how local government elections will go in any given state from the east, north, west, and south of this country, because they will tell you that the governor is in charge. Therefore, your loyalty to the governor and the blessing you get from the governor is more of a determining factor as to whether you will emerge as the chairman or councillor in a given local government, which again is an indication of how broken our system is. And it raises the concern of what happens to people who may otherwise have the capacity, the competence, and the requisite skill set to lead as local government chairman or as councillor, but are not necessarily loyal to the governor. That will leave it on the program this very promising Sunday. Thank you everyone for being a part of it. We do not take your time with us for granted. I'm Uyag Mofogwe. Our broadcast here on Global Television continues.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
We struggled with ASU strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
I've seen watch your network, Global Television, and I think it's a refreshing addition to some of the networks that we already have, to have competitive media and looking at news from different angles. The place to go is to watch Global Television, because it gives you a different perspective, whether it is local news or foreign news, and even you're connecting with local communities in villages that I have seen. So we urge Nigerians that, this is the time to broaden the space, the source of information, of entertainment, and of enlightenment. And Global TV is the place to watch.
Global Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.